Hey, it's NPR's Book of the Day. I'm Andrew Limbong. Today on the pod is all about motherhood, and not just the part of motherhood that involves, taking care of the child, but all the stuff that surrounds that job. In a bit, we'll hear about a novel that tackles that rough time where you not only have to take care of your kids, but you've got aging parents to worry about too. But first, Claire Lombardo's novel, Same as It Ever Was, zooms in on the lonely parts of motherhood, which, I'll be real, I don't think I completely understood until I had a kid. And let me tell you, they're not actually great company. Anyway, she talked to NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben about how she nailed this detail of motherhood without being a mother herself. That's after the break.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from the Southern Environmental Law Center, the South's largest environmental advocate and protector. SELC is dedicated to tackling the toughest environmental challenges by protecting our air, water, land, wildlife, and the people that live there. Learn more at southernenvironment.org. Support for NPR and the following message come from Amazon Business. Everyone could use more time. Amazon Business offers smart business buying solutions so you can spend more time growing your business and less time doing the admin. Learn more at amazonbusiness.com.
They say it takes a village to raise a child. Claire Lombardo's new novel, Same as It Ever Was, is, in part, about a woman named Julia raising a child without a village. Julia is quickly unraveling as a lonely stay-at-home mom when she makes a new, older friend in Helen. Julia's life improves rapidly, before nearly imploding. It's funny and sharp, and it's just really real if you've ever birthed a small person. Claire Lombardo, welcome to Weekend Edition.
Thank you so much. It's a delight to be here.
Well, your book is a delight. And let's start right at the start. This story opens with Julia. She's now 57. She's at the grocery store in pursuit of crab meat when she bumps into someone she hoped to never see again, and that someone is Helen. Start by setting the stage for us. Who are these women to each other?
Yeah, so that is one of the sort of central relationships of this novel for me. Helen is about 30 years Julia's senior. So when they meet, as you just described, they're both quite a bit older, but they meet originally when Julia is in her 30s. She is a new mom. She is underwhelmed by much of what life is offering her. And Helen is a mother of five, a corporate litigator, this woman who, quote unquote, has it all and has done it all. And Julia finds this totally intoxicating. And they embark on this very intense friendship that ends up changing both of their lives, I would say. Yeah.
This book starts out being about that one friendship, and it's also about the difficulty of motherhood. But the book becomes about so much more. It's about marriage, it's about loneliness, it's about secrets, and also, I should say, it's often just very funny. What would you say this book is about? How would you describe it?
I've been describing this book as a story of a woman's life sort of told out of order. You really kind of get the gamut of Julia's human experience, and Julia is a character who I would say finds it harder to be a person than a lot of us do. So a story of a life of a woman who finds life kind of challenging.
Yeah. It's a book, a lot happens in it, but I wouldn't call it plot-driven. It is, like you said, about a woman's life. How do you approach writing a book where the plot is just the general messiness of a person's life?
Yeah, I've never been a very plot-driven writer, though I find the longer you spend with a character, the more they misbehave, which then creates plot. So with Julia, I was working on this book for 7 or 8 years and spending time with this character every day. And the better I got to know her, the more comfortable I felt putting her in different situations and just sort of seeing how she would navigate her way through them. And she often navigates her way through them by making choices that are maybe hard for readers to reconcile with, that were, hard for me to reconcile with sometimes, that then yield more things. And so Julia is very much a catalyst for plot, I would say.
I have a passage I hope you'll read for us. It's from early in the book. This is Julia thinking about her husband, Mark, and also her aloneness in those early days of motherhood.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh God, my best friend is 3, she thought sometimes. She'd recently tried to explain this to Mark when he'd suggested, using slightly kinder verbiage, that perhaps it would do her some good to find some friends her own age. Of course, she knew that Ben was not her friend, but her child, but the realization somehow had not struck her until Mark pointed it out to her. And the loneliness that followed, loneliness on top of loneliness, loss from what was already such a sparsely populated space, was startlingly powerful. It was so easy lately to kick her when she was down, even unintentionally. And it was never intentional with Mark, the nicest man in the world, because she was always down, not even to be kicked necessarily, but tripped over. A standing date, a stagnant entity for emotional casualty. "Are you sad?" Ben asked, surprising her, and she swallowed the impulse to cry, though surely he was used by now to the sight of her tears. "Of course not," she said into his head. "Mama's so happy." She felt wisps of his hair between her lips. She had the urge, sometimes fierce and instinctual, to eat him. "Sweet, my sweet, you make Mama so, so happy."
Okay, it's paragraphs like that that really punched me in the face in a good way. In a good way. I think a lot of us have this intellectual sense that parenthood is hard, that motherhood is hard, and that, yes, it's hard for everyone. So I'm wondering, why does it feel like such a revelation to actually hear these specific stories about it being hard for other people?
I wonder that myself, and I think it may have something to do with the fact that we're not supposed to say things like that. I think it's less palatable to talk about parts of our life, motherhood or otherwise, that we're struggling with. And Julia comes by it pretty honestly, even or perhaps especially in situations when she isn't supposed to. And so I do think that I'm getting a lot of responses like that from readers, that I think they feel recognized, or they feel that their experiences are being spoken of or to in a way that doesn't happen as often, maybe as it should.
I didn't ask, are you a mom?
I'm not, no.
Because you write it so well. How do you capture it so specifically? Not that you don't have to be a mom to write mothers, of course, but how did you get into this headspace?
I mean, I think I approached Julia as a mother in the same way that I approach, any other facets of Julia that weren't like me. Julia as a librarian, Julia as a wife of 30 years, Julia as, the daughter of a single mother, etc. But I think I spent so much time with this character, and once I felt like I knew her really well, it became easier to imagine, here's Julia alone in a space. What would it look like if there's, a 2-year-old in that space with her? How would she respond to that? How would she feel about that? I also worked at a preschool for a while in my 20s, which I feel like just
That'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Floating around in that space will inspire many novels, probably. Yeah.
You capture family dynamics in this book so well. And I'm thinking about, there's at one point you write that Julia is afraid of her teenage daughter, which is so funny and it feels so true. And your last book, The Most Fun We Ever Had, that also digs into family relationships. What is so fascinating to you about families?
Everything. I had the novelist Margot Livesey was one of my teachers when I was a graduate student, and she once said that every writer is drawn either to what she called messy families or tidy families. And I am very much drawn to messy families, in part because I come from a large family. But I think it's sort of a writer's dream to be presented with a ready-made cast of characters who are forced to be together and maybe wouldn't have chosen to be together. So I love that. I love having these people who are, for all intents and purposes, trapped in a house together for years. And, there's never not entertainment to be found therein.
That was Claire Lombardo, author of the new novel, Same as It Ever Was. Claire, this was a treat. Thank you.
It was a delight. Thank you so much for having me.
This message comes from Progressive. What if comparing car insurance rates was as easy as putting on your favorite podcast? With Progressive, it is. Just visit their website to get a quote with all the coverages you want. You'll see Progressive's direct rate, and their tool will provide options from other companies so you can compare. Then just choose the rate and coverage you like. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Catherine Newman has a funny phrase to describe what her book Sandwich is about. She calls it reproductive mayhem, and NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben is back doing this interview, so you'll know they'll dig into exactly what that entails. Here's Danielle.
Take the word sandwich and you get a delicious lunch, preferably toasted, a Massachusetts town on the Cape, and also sandwich generation for those squeezed between caring for children and aging parents. Catherine Newman embraces all of this in her new novel called Sandwich. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you so much.
So how did the idea for this book, with its very apt title, take root in your mind?
There were kind of twinned impulses. One is I wanted to write about my sort of lifelong love affair with Cape Cod. And then there's like this secret other thing, which is that I wanted to write about kind of the toll of being a woman in a reproductive body hitting mid-50s.
I wonder if you could introduce us to your protagonist, Rachel, or as her family calls her, Rocky. Can you read for us from the book's prologue?
In the passenger seat of one slightly resting silver Subaru station wagon, a woman in her 50s. She is halfway in age between her young adult children and her elderly parents. She is long married to a beautiful man who understands between 20 and 65% of everything she says. Her body is a wonderland, or maybe her body is a satchel full of scars and secrets and menopause.
You know, this book, on the one hand, it's very much a story about Rocky having reached this point in her life where, yes, she's going through menopause and that's a challenge, but really, she's at this pretty happy place. And there's this passage where she thinks to herself, I'd pick this life too. I'd even pick the way that pain has burnished me to brightness. The pain itself, though, I imagine I'd give it up if I could. Was pain necessary for Rocky to get to this joyful, relaxed part of life?
You know, that's a question for my therapist. I mean, Rocky's therapist. There is something very galvanizing about loss in terms of feeling that incredible luck and feeling how precarious it is to be with the people you love. That is the human contract that you will lose everybody. And Rocky is the kind of person for whom an awareness of that makes life very sweet and very tender.
One of the central relationships that this book is about is between Rocky and her husband, Nick. Maybe you can tell us where they're at this stage of their life together.
They've been married for decades. They're new empty nesters. And they're at this moment where, on the one hand, they've been together so long that there's this just kind of worn sweetness to the way they are. And on the other hand, there's a kind of realization Rocky's having that they have not borne the brunt of their lives as parents or as reproductive people. They have not carried this weight equally. And she's kind of angry at him about that, even though there's truly nothing he can do.
You know, we've hinted at this. A big theme of this book, I think you could describe as the indignities that happen to women's bodies or can happen at different times of life. It sounds like you knew from the beginning that you wanted that to be a central theme.
I did want that to be a central theme. And I've gotten variations of questions on, like, did you ever think about just making this be like a nice beach read? Which only, like, of
Great.
course. You know, it's a question my family would ask a version of on vacation, which would be like, could we just have a great week? Do you need to be such a pain? You know, my original elevator pitch for the book was that it was a book about reproductive mayhem. And I have since amended that to be like, it's a book about kind of everything that the body holds after decades of life as a reproductive body.
Speaking of reproductive storylines in this book, there's a subplot about abortion. Now, usually I cover politics where abortion is often treated very delicately. So I was struck by how matter-of-factly you write about it. There's one point where Rocky and her daughter have this back and forth about abortion, and the daughter, Willa, scolds Rocky for how she's talking, and Rocky responds, "Willa, honey, I'm not running for governor." I wonder if you could talk about the tone you use in talking about abortion.
I really appreciate that question. The only thing nerve-wracking for me about this book being in the world is that abortions aren't easy on women, but they are absolutely yours to have and yours to feel however you feel about. So I wanted that really robust politics to be in the novel, but to be in the novel as just like everyday conversation more than it being, a 5-page chapter that felt like you were being scolded about something.
Now, the season in this book is summer. It's at the beach. There's family drama. It felt, to some degree, like the setup for a Nancy Meyers film or a romantic comedy. Did you want to play with the tropes of those kinds of films and stories a bit?
I don't know. I think I didn't think of it that way, but when you say it, I feel like it's kind of true. It's like the trappings of that with this kind of weird, gross, dark underbelly. And I don't know if that's going to make people feel really off-put, where they're going to pick it up and it looks like a beach read, and then actually there's a blood clot dropping out of someone's pants, and it's like terrifying. So we'll have to see.
I thought that bit was kind of funny, to be honest. So, well, it won't be off-putting to everybody. I read that you wrote an etiquette column for a decade at the magazine Real Simple. Has that influenced your fiction at all?
I think it consolidated my worldview, to be honest. So yes, I think it has influenced every single aspect of my life. If you write an etiquette column for 10 years, it is really hard to deal with the fact of other people's otherness. That every etiquette question could be reduced to that. You don't like somebody's wind chime. Someone puts lipstick on at the table. Do you invite your gay cousin-in-law to your wedding? The thrust of every question is, people are different from me and I can't stand it. And then the thing that you have to say to everybody is, you have to stand it. That's the human condition. You have to approach it with as much grace as is humanly possible, which is more grace than you're currently mustering. And so I feel like that is totally in the book in a weird way. Rocky's challenge is to deal with the fact of other people's otherness.
Throughout the book, Rocky does actually make some killer sandwiches. They sound delicious for her family. This is an important question. Are you known for yours?
Why, yes, I am known for my sandwiches, and I'm known for trolling for compliments about them.
Nice. What's your go-to sandwich?
My go-to sandwich is baguette with tuna salad that has tons of pepperoncinis in it and dill.
That sounds great. I will try that. Well, Catherine Newman's new novel is called Sandwich. Catherine, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.
That's it for this week on NPR's Book of the Day. If you want more, you can sign up for our newsletter at npr.org/newsletter/books. I'm Andrew Limbong. The podcast is produced by Isabella Gomez-Sarmiento and edited by Megan Sullivan and Sierra Crawford. Our founding editor is Petra Mayer. The show elements for this week were produced and edited by Dee Parvaz, Ryan Bank, Ashley Brown, Gabriel Sanchez, Janaki Mehta, Courtney Dorning, Rena Advani, Chris Thomas, Melissa Gray, Samantha Balaban, Shannon Rhodes, and Elena Torek. Beth Donovan is our managing editor. Thanks for listening.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Merrill. Whatever your financial goals are, you want a straightforward path there. But the real world doesn't usually work that way. Merrill understands that. That's why, with a dedicated Merrill advisor, you get a personalized plan and a clear path forward. Go to ml.com/bullish to learn more. Merrill, a Bank of America company. What would you like the power to do? Investing involves risk. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith Incorporated, registered broker-dealer, registered investment advisor, member SIPC. This message comes from NPR sponsor Sony Pictures Classics presenting Kneecap, a new comedy about 3 friends who start a rap group that creates a movement, starring the group Kneecap as themselves and Michael Fassbender. Now playing nationwide, only in theaters.